Ready to talk property the Aussie way? Let's go.
Welcome back to Property NXT Talks. I'm Cilla.
I'm Luke.
And we're here, your property experts based in Singapore, expats who are helping connect foreign investors and buyers with prime Australian real estate. That's the right option for them.
Aussie expats.
Yes, that's right. How long have you been up here for now?
4 years.
Nice.
Just ticked the anniversary box.
Happy anniversary.
Yeah, very exciting.
Yeah, and your son's in school up here too, right?
He's in school. Love it. Love it. Singapore's just an awesome place to live.
Yeah. It goes.
I don't have many complaints, and it absolutely flies by.
It does. It goes really quickly. I'm like 10 and a half years now. Came for 2, the classic, as we've explained before. So today we are here to talk about, I basically had a conversation with someone just recently and it kind of threw me. And then I saw a podcast or a debate in Australia as well. And it was about, someone came up to me and asked, is property really worth investing in Australia? Because I feel like the property bubble is going to burst soon. And they literally said that to me about a month ago. And then not long ago, there was this grand debate about how to get rich in Australia. And it was 2 prominent figures, one in like startup business who's made millions and millions in business, and the other one in property. And the whole debate was, is property the way to get rich in Australia, or is it starting your own business? And the same theme came up of the Australian property bubble is going to burst soon. And I'd never heard of it, because from me, I've seen over the last 20 plus years of the Australian market growing very steadily. And so I thought we should unpack today, is that true, Luke? What's your theory on that, or what's your response to it? Because for me, it was a bit of a, who are you talking to get that information?
Oh, I love those people. Love them. I've been in the industry in Australia for 25 years, 24 years, something like that. I've been up here for 4, as I just said, and I used to stand at the open houses with the clipboards, the old school in Manly where I used to work. So, you come in, you write your name, number, and maybe I'm this old, I was in before you got the email address, was just name and number. Then it got to email and comments. And every day, every Saturday, you did Saturdays and Wednesdays. They still do it now in Australia. Every Saturday and Wednesday, someone would walk in and say, oh, it's too much. The prices are going to burst. And this happened 20 odd years ago, 18 years ago, 16, 10, 5, never stops. And so what's the theory? Why are these people? Well, I don't know their messaging behind it. You do get a pattern of the same person though. Back in the old days when I was doing that, you'd see these people and they'd love it. On every Saturday they'd be there. They'd look at every property. They'd tell every agent the properties were all too overpriced. 6 months would go by, they're all still too overpriced. 12 months would go by, they're all still overpriced. 18 months, still they're sticking with their formula. The market's since gone up 10 to 12% since I've been saying this. And at 2-year mark, they pull the trigger and they pay 25% more than they would have paid a year ago. Now, why does the Australian property market go up? There are so many factors to why Australian real estate's just a very unique asset class in the world of asset classes around the world. Australia is such a little isolated island. It's a big island, but there's not a lot of people there really in terms of population. And supply and demand, which is what we're going to talk about today, they just can't get it right. From the federal government through to the states, through to the councils, 3 layers of government in Australia, they can't get it right. The amount of restrictions and regulations they put in place for property developers to be able to actually build, to be able to support the amount of property they need, they can't get it right. And then so that all just leads to prices that keep going up. And we're going to talk all about this stuff today, aren't we?
Yes. So supply and demand. So talk me through that. If you were to break down supply and demand, what's the easiest way to explain that?
What's the most basic of economic metrics? And I'm no economist, but you've got one. It's that sort of pendulum. You've got one group that wants something, and one where there's not enough or there's too much, and that sort of dictates price points. And that's in every aspect of the world. Real estate is really simple at the moment, and it has been for the last 4 or 5 years since COVID. There's just more buyers than there is property available. And we're going to talk about that in detail today. So, back onto those people that have sort of made those comments to you. And when you come to me and you say to me, Luke, there's someone that's told me the property bubble's about to burst. I say, well, I don't use profanity much, but, good luck. I always say, don't I? Like, it's like, okay, seen it before, seen it many a time. Eventually you'll either buy or you won't. You know, you'll stick your heels in and do other things, and good luck to them for that. But the market's amazing, absolutely amazing.
And I think you can really look at the last 20 plus years of historical data that should indicate what the next is going to look like as well. And as we dive into this supply and demand issue, I hope our listeners can really understand why we don't see this bubble bursting anytime soon, and why really it's an investor's market out there. If you want to build wealth through property, the Australian market is the place to be because of this supply and demand issue.
Well, it's just the one category, right? And there's lots. Well, so the best thing about real estate, that especially in Australia, is the banks, Mr. and Mrs. Lender, are prepared to give you 80% of your money. That's another factor. Like, if you want to buy shares, and we've had Jamie on the podcast, it's all your cash. You've got to have 100,000, $1 million, $2 million. It's all got to go in. Your chips are all in. Whereas with real estate, you use the bank's money. You use 80% leverage. You only need 20%. And then if you talk to people like us, you actually only need 10% today. And then hopefully through buying in the right location, you make equity. And then you actually don't even need any more because the equity outgrows the second 10%. And what's the fun things that we talk about? But, you know, you've got immigration is a big factor, infrastructure. Government policy is a massive factor as to why a real estate market will go up or down. And Australia as a whole I think it's an amazing place to buy real estate anywhere. But they do have ebbs and flows. There are markets that are not going as well as other markets, which we've talked about previously. But if you're an investor out there who's a buy and hold person, you're going to do well long term. You buy the asset, you hold the asset over a period of 10 years of ownership. Generally speaking, those ebbs and flows of government policy and changes in the market, they'll sort of swings and roundabouts, and your property value will go up. Our job is to target moving markets, and supply and demand, which is what we're going to really dive into today, is one of those big factors that really, really does move the needle. Yeah.
So essentially supply and demand is there are not enough dwellings getting built for who needs to live in them.
Correct.
And that, I think I read a stat the other day that it was just like on average, states are missing out on their targets by 30% every month or every year. I'm not sure what it is. You could probably say it. Of their dwelling, and some of them is even 50%. They're only delivering half of what is actually needed.
Yeah, it's crazy. So I'm going to go notes free, and we're just going to sort of throw some numbers out and see, you know, if I jumble them up, you correct me. But so the Australian federal government has a plan to build 1.2 million new homes by 2029.
Okay.
Now that's a great plan, and that's currently failing.
Do they have, is that in like selected areas, or is that sort of divided up equally? Is it just a flat sort of 1.2 million somewhere in Australia?
No, it's divided up within the states, and they have to, you know, be able to hit their targets based on their population growth numbers, immigration, all of those things. So, you know, Adelaide, which is a much smaller state than New South Wales, is not going to have the same quota. But as it currently stands, 1.2 million homes needed to be built to keep up with demand. They're currently on track to complete 930,000.
Okay.
So they're miles behind already, and this is in 2025. So that's one stat. Another stat is Australia annually sells around 500 to 550,000 properties a year. That's a lot of turnover. There is 11.2 million houses.
That was going to be my next question.
So it's 11.2 million homes in Australia.
And then over 500,000 getting...
Over 500,000 turning over.
Okay.
Now, you know, you could have people out there doing maths on all these things, but reality is if a property developer buys 4 homes to build 12, well, then 4 homes are taken out and 8 new homes coming in. So it's the net of 8 as opposed to 12. You know, if someone wants to get really funny with the numbers. But so 5 to 550 new sales per annum. You've got, on average at the moment, the amount of properties available on the market for what needs to be is 20% below the average market.
Okay.
So there's a 20% less.
Yeah.
Now, to jump that down into even more finite details, I've spoken to some developers in WA, in Perth. Now, in the WA market, we use realestate.com.au as a core market guide for, most people in Australia know I want to look at a property, I'll go onto realestate.com.au. And so available properties on the market in Perth at any given time, this is the whole city, not the CBD, is about 12,000 at any time in the market on average. Now, for the last 18 months to 24 months, that number's been 4,000. So they're a third of available properties to the market available. That's an insane stat of lack of supply.
A reduction in selling, reduced building, like we're missing the numbers to build. Sounds like
Crazy.
A bit of a crisis is happening. And that's what we're seeing, aren't we?
And that's in WA alone. So that's the WA stat. So in Queensland, one of our favourite markets, the Brisbane CBD and surrounds, huge capital city, they need to build 8,000 new build apartments, townhouses per annum to keep up with demand. Now, for the last 2 to 3 years, they've averaged 1,200. So again, that is a huge lack of building going on. So now
Can't wait to go into the whys.
So what why? So
but we can go
just
there.
Those numbers and those metrics alone, you think to yourself, oh my goodness, so what is going on? And then just to really throw some numbers out there, I did the stats on foreign purchases because we're in Singapore, we talk to foreign buyers into Australia, and in Australia it's a bit of a beat up from the media when, the government is getting too much grief and they say, I'll blame the foreign buyers, right? So they'll do these big press releases. So I think the most recent stats that I could find was 2021, 2022. 4,400 properties were bought by foreigners from overseas into Australia. Bugger all. If you think there's 500 to 550,000 per annum sales, that's not a lot.
No.
Now, here's the even better thing to beat up on, is that Australia banned foreigners buying existing homes for the next 2 years, 2025 to 2027, because they were...
Too much pressure.
They were inflating the market. They were taking up too much property. Out of those 4,000... it's like 32% or something were existing homes. It's like 1,700 homes were bought by foreigners. So out of the 500-odd thousand sales per annum, only 1,700 were bought by foreigners, and they pay huge taxes to be able to buy them. That's by the by. But for that to have been such a big story in Australia as a problem with the supply issue is like, to me that says...
Everybody look over there.
Look over there. I don't want you to see this big shiny problem over here. So we can now start talking about it. I hope those numbers make sense.
Yeah, it does. I mean, I'll probably need to write them down, and I can help write them down because you know me, I'm a bit more visual. But you did mention that the 1.2 million being set by federal and then being allocated. Like, does that then make it a federal or a state responsibility of how it gets built? Like, who's responsible for delivering these targets?
Government departments, Cilla. So you've got the federal government sets the targets, and they set out the zoning requirements and stuff, but then that filters down to the state government. And then underneath the state government, you have the local councils. So anyone that's owned a property that has ever wanted to do a addition, as an example, you want to build a deck on the back of your house, you've got to go to the local council and you've got to get approval to do that. Now that can take in some councils
a long time.
2 years?
Yes.
To get an addition.
Done that.
That's a horrible experience. Now, can you imagine you're a real estate developer? Your job is to buy land, develop it, and sell it to people to improve the supply and demand in the area.
Yeah.
Right? So here's something for you to think about. So the amount of red tape for a developer to go through to get from point of purchase of land all the way through to completion in today's market, guess how long it takes?
I want to say a year, but knowing it takes almost 2 for someone to do something residentially for their own private dwelling, maybe 4 or 5 years?
So look, take this as you will. I've literally just had this conversation to get some information for our listeners. So a very prominent developer in Queensland has told me 10 years.
10 years?
10 years. So you can imagine, so there's and I'll run through. So they get a block of land, they buy the land. They then look at the zoning. The zoning says they can build something on the land. They've got to go to council to get that looked at as a first step. Then they've got to put in the services. So you've got to, from wherever the nearest road is, you've got to then bring all the services to attach to that site. You've got to build the roads, etc. Then you've got to go back into council to do any adjustments or what have you. And then from there, you then can start to talk to builders and stuff and get your quotes and things. Yeah, the process is enormous. The actual acquisition of the land is really just minuscule in the whole process.
Wow.
And this is why there is such a loggerhead of demand issues, is because, there's so much red tape within the government departments, and then the poor developer. Now, people say you can't say poor developer; they all do quite well for themselves, and yes, they do. But I mean, there's a lot of business models out there that wouldn't be able to survive investing in something today and actually not seeing a return for 10 years.
Yeah.
That's a tough way to do business.
Even, I mean, just considering poor developer and like the government red tape, the irony that we actually just need more houses. So let's just get it going, and it's still so complicated and convoluted to work through.
You've got to go. So federal say yes, we need them. State might say yes, we need them, but local council like, well, I don't care. We're going to take our time. Or vice versa. Federal may say you need them. State government says, well, no, we're going to argue with you about what we want to do. Councils.
It's probably resourcing, or
who knows?
We could speculate until
it's beyond
the end
our
of time.
pay grade. But all we know from that is that, I always say this when you talk to me, is if the governments can get it right to say, okay, we can approve all these properties. The next stage of why is it not going to succeed in Australia at the moment is that the poor developer, and I said it again, the wrong probably terminology, but the developers out there, the amount of trades that we've currently got available to actually finish and work the jobs. Yeah. So then the next stage for the developer is they get the approval, they can start building. Then they've got to time actually how many staff they've got, because there's a lack of all trades, and this is fairly common knowledge. Labourers, chippies, painters, plumbers, electricians.
And they cost a lot too, really. And because of that reason, it's the same thing, supply and demand.
Supply and demand. They cost a lot of money. You've got to get them on site to do the job.
Yeah.
And then by the time it's all completed, off it goes. So then the other interesting thing from a timing line is to actually build a house and land, just a really basic house and land, used to take about 6 months. It's now finished out to sort of 10 months. So it's an extra 4 months of build time. So that's more 4 months of costs and things associated with it. And all of this goes to the bottom dollar of the investor or the property buyer. All of those things stack up. So the time in market is huge at the moment. So can we see an end in sight for the supply and demand crunch from a building side of things? I don't think we can for at least 5 or 10 years, because how are they going to get that piece right? And they don't exactly talk. There's not a lot of communication going on from all those parties.
No, it's not really connected, is it? All of these data points and experiences. How do we connect all this?
I don't even think the federal governments and the state governments and the councils are connected in conversation, let alone the developers in independent companies and them working together and trying to get trades in, and then you've got unions and stuff. It's a very much you've got to look after yourself in your own backyard type of thing. And then you've got people like us, and our job is to go out there and talk to buyers. And if I can simplify, and we can simplify that message, that one metric of supply and demand says to us as a property business, Australia's still a good place to invest in, because there's just a severe lack of available property in the right locations for our people to get. And if you can get into it, it'll go up in value. It just is.
And I imagine hopefully, like you said, though, we could get back on track within the next 5, 10 plus years, maybe 10 plus years. But the reality is as well, our immigration is going up too. We've got more migrants coming into the country. So I kind of see that trajectory going up as well. Like, I'm curious if we'll ever catch up, and no one knows, right? But with the immigration coming, fast and fierce, and there's a big push to have more people come into Australia at the moment. Again, are these federal or government departments talking to each other about let's get people in and let's make sure they can live somewhere? That's also,
or is it two to 5 years behind all the time? That's the thing.
Will we always be trying to play catch up?
Yeah, we're going to play catch up for as far as I can see, which as a property person is great, because I can see a value add for our clients. Because somewhere always is, whether you're renting or living, there's always a need for both. And so that's why there's an endless supply of available sort of opportunities. We like assets for our clients to be able to buy. Yeah.
So rising population, we'll always have that demand of places to live. There's not enough. So investing in property and owning property, you're always going to see that stable growth because of the the immigration and because of the need for houses as well.
And so when people come to you and they say, will the Australian market tank or bomb? What do they call it? Drop off? What's the term?
Burst. Will the bubble burst?
I've heard 3 other ones.
Is the property
will
tank bomb?
Tank bomb, drop off,
bubble burst.
Will it burst? Well, if you're an outsider that's looking in, you could see, you'd just be looking and going, what? That just makes no sense. Those prices just keep going up and up and up. But with us just unpacking one of the metrics of purely on supply and demand, then you can see why it keeps going up. We haven't talked about all the taxes the governments make off property. We haven't talked about in great detail immigration. We haven't talked about all the infrastructure around this growth and the growing Australian cities. And so this is
just a fundamental systemic issue that we have in Australia. It's not even about the taxes. It's like we just don't have
got to build
enough places. We need to build.
Got to build.
We don't have that support from government to necessarily do that.
Agreed, 100%. And that makes it a really great place to park your money. And if you take advantage of all the things that we have up here, as being overseas expats or foreign buyers looking to buy into Australia, we get to capitalise on depreciation because we buy new. We get all those tax benefits that we can take advantage of. We get to take advantage of the FX rate at the moment. Weaker Australian dollar versus others. We get to take advantage of interest rate drops in Australia. So with so many bonuses, extra things that we've got going on for us up here, that I just think, if you've got a little bit of spare cash, it's a great place to put some money because you're going to do well long term. You've got to have that long term view. We're big on that, aren't we?
Yeah. It is, and that's the thing. This issue that is long term as well. So it's like at the end of the day, this isn't going to be something that's going to be fixed overnight. The supply and demand, you're going to need, this is going to be here for the long term. This is where we can, when we think about long term strategies of investing, that's going to always be like a key consideration point.
Oh yeah, very much so. And we said it earlier, markets are different across Australia. Not every market's exactly the same. Some go through good and bad times, but that long-term strategy always pays dividends. And I truly just can't see them fixing the supply and demand issues.
And would you say, you just mentioned that the markets are different across Australia. Are some markets better than others, in more demand than others or less supply than others? Or would you say it's pretty, ratio-wise, it's pretty even? From
all my stats, the market is generally just low on supply everywhere. There are pockets. There will always be pockets where there's a bit more supply than others. Some inner city apartments, for example, will have more new towers being built, or some suburbs will have, maybe a new greenfield in house and land development where there's more available properties. But if you take a broader look, state by state, generally there's the same issues apply across the board.
And is it fair to say or assume, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but those areas of maybe concentrated oversupply potential, that impacts the value of that property?
It does, yeah.
Does
for a period of time, yes, yeah.
Okay. But again, as people move in and they get full and then there's no more space to build, in the long term, that value will go up again, will continue to go up.
Yeah, and look, there are measures that people will put in for oversupply. Banks will put in measures and so forth. We can go into that in greater detail, but at another time. But if you buy long term, if you ride through the peaks and troughs, like say for example, you've bought in a property, but you're just going to hold it long term. You don't actually know if a market's going up and down because you're not focused on it as an investor. You just know if you've got a great tenant and they're paying you good rent. You've got your annual increases happening. You've got your depreciation happening on the asset from your accountancy side of things. You don't worry about the values week in, week out. We do. That's our job.
Yeah.
But the everyday investor just buys a really great asset for great reasons. And then hopefully every couple of years they might re-up and buy another one. Or they put their money into other asset classes and off they go.
Yeah, I think this is just such a... It feels like it's not a complicated solution to solve. It's just like build more houses. But there's just so much more under the hood. Like you just mentioned, the red tape, the zoning, the different responsibilities of the governments, whether it be state, federal, or even the local councils as well. You've got material costs, labour costs, and resourcing shortages. That's also impacting all of this. So so many people think like, oh, why can't they just build the houses? And it's just like there's just so much more behind the scenes than you can really imagine. And yeah, it probably should be more easier to build houses. It probably shouldn't be as complicated as it is, but it just is. And I think this is just not a easy overnight fix.
It's not. It's probably not a decade fix either.
Yeah.
But good on us for being in this space, and that's what we can advise our clients on, isn't it? These are the conversations we have all the time. What's our philosophy? Education is key. We want all of our clients to go into a purchase thinking that they really know the nuts and bolts of what
eyes
they're
wide
doing.
open.
Eyes wide open. They've been in a position where they're flat out working, doing whatever they're doing up here or somewhere overseas. Our job is to know this piece of the puzzle for them, guide them into this investment. But we want them to be educated, make the right decision.
Absolutely. So TLDR, the Australian property market is not going to burst anytime soon, as we've hopefully explained some of the factors as to why with the supply and demand. You're listening to Property NXT Talks. Thank Luke.
Thanks.
We're looking forward to our next chat. And please follow us and share us with anyone if you found the content today useful. And we look forward to speaking to you soon.
Bye.
Thanks. See ya.